Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, we're going to be doing part 1 of a 2-part review series on the new TR8 racing cockpit from the guys at Trak Racer. In this video, which is called The Build, we'll be assembling the frame and looking at parts and material quality and, of course, the ease of the construction process. The second video in this series will be called The Setup, where sim racing hardware will be added, and then we'll spend some, well, quality time evaluating the driving experience. So, let's get to it. A closer look at the Trak Racer TR8's seat section of the frame. Obviously, this is where we're going to be mounting the seat. As you notice, we have some sliders here. Right. First off, the overall construction of this frame, or this section actually, is very sturdy, which kind of translates or is the theme for all these sections. This piece by itself weighs in at 25.5 pounds. So that gives you some idea that, yeah, we have some substantial metal sitting here. Now, of course, the seat sliders do add some weight to that, but it's mainly obviously in this big tube here and the connecting frame on the side. And we'll take a better look at that now. First off, the tubes themselves start out over here with, we actually have 2 holes here and a hole on top. And we actually have, you can see on this tube here, another 2 holes on the other side of them. So we're actually going to have 5 different attachment points for the front part of the frame. And we'll see that when we get there, when the male part of that front frame slides in here. So yeah, that's encouraging to say the least as far as the stiffness and how rigid this is going to be. Now, this is a 2-inch tube, and it is 1.89 millimeters thick, and I'm sure everyone would call that 2 mil. So, a pretty big tube here, and you got to admit, you got to love these swooping lines of these tube cockpits. Not all of them, but at least, you know, some of them out there, and this one included. And yeah, we have a nice swooping section here, and then of course it goes down and curls around to the rear and all the way around the back. You can see the little feet there, and these feet are actually rubber. Tilt this up, you can actually kind of squeeze them in a little bit, so it's not a real hard plastic or anything. It's actually a good dampening type of rubber. And of course it flows on over to the other side. Now, to reinforce this, instead of just leaving this open and attaching where we can see here, let me turn this back around here, we actually have 40 millimeter pipes, or regular rectangular pieces, that run the length, that are attaching here to the back of the tube, as you can see there. And I'll show you some of these welds close up. And we have, again, on the front, connecting those two in a kind of a double T configuration. All right. So this is also 40 mil, and I'll show you some of the welds there that are connecting these guys together over here on this plate. Now, speaking of this plate that's underneath this tube, I'm going to swivel this around. Instead of just leaving this tube like this, they've decided to actually attach an inner plate here. And I'll give you a little B-roll of it here. And you can see that we have some nice welds on that plate on the top of the tube, or actually the bottom of the tube, the top of the plate. And of course that goes around to the middle where you see a rectangular tube that adds more welding surface. And then it follows down and flows down towards the front with a few more welds sitting there. So yeah, very sturdy as far as the build here. In this, a very thick plate here. The actual plate is 5 millimeters thick, that steel plate there. And yeah, it's very sturdy when you hold it in your hand. It's just no movement at all on this thing. Right, and then the actual plate that you see here that says Trak Racer on it is actually bolted on. We have a bolt up front here, and then we have a couple of bolts in the back here, right? That doesn't add anything to the structural integrity of this frame. It's just a nameplate, but it does add some. They did have to cut some holes in it, because if you look on this part of it, on this side, we've got some M8 bolts in here, and what they're going to do is attach, depending on which side you're going to have your shifter. This is actually going to be used to attach the shifter accessory that goes on this frame, and we'll see that once we get to that point. Right. Anything else we can talk about here? It's all about the welds. Let's talk about this. Now, this is something I haven't ever seen before. Let me get a little closer here so you guys see this. Try not to bump my camera's tripod. This is a piece of rubber, right? It's just a rubber strip. It's 40 millimeters wide. It's 10 millimeter thick and 305 millimeters long, right? So I'm not sure what this is for, because obviously we're going to be bolting the seat bracket to that. And it seems to me, I'm not sure why they did it that way. I was thinking of a couple of things. I'm going to grab a seat bracket here and try to show you what we're going to do. So these seat brackets obviously have a couple of holes on each end of them, and they're just going to fit right where those bolts are sitting. So I was thinking about, well, what could they possibly be using this rubber strip for? Because they don't need dampening. This is not a motion system. And the only thing I can see it's going to provide for is there's going to be some lateral movement available here. I don't know how much it's going to really crush down on the rubber, but yeah, definitely going to have some lateral movement. And I'm not sure if that's for the seat-to-seat tolerance on the manufacturing process for those seats, or if it's, you know, the seat might be able to expand a little bit as a bigger person sits in it, and maybe that'll allow that to move and accommodate a bigger bum in the seat. I'm just going over some theories here, and we really won't know until I get everything put together and the seat mounted to this seat bracket, and then we'll be able to experiment a little bit and see really what this rubber piece is actually doing. Because again, I've never seen this before. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, I'm not sure. So, anything else we want to talk about here? I think that's it. We covered this pretty well. And what we'll do next is get to the front section of the cockpit and see how that looks. So this is the front section of the cockpit, obviously, and it has the pedal tray in it. And first off, again, the construction continues on with the flow here with the 2-inch tubes. And let me spin this around here. And we have a 40mm square bar that is welded to the tubes up here. And on the back, we also have another 40mm. Turn this around. Underneath here. Well, actually, we got two of them. We got one here, and we've got one here. And of course, they have welds all the way around to this tube here. Very nicely done. And you can see this is obviously adjustable. And we've got a couple feet. We got one back here, and we got one up here on both sides. Same kind of rubber that's on the back side of the seat side of the bottom part of this frame. Now, got some nice reinforcement here. Again, instead of just leaving these tubes bent and just attaching, you know, welding the cross member to it and welding it here, they added the extra piece here, and that's got a weld here, here, and here on both sides, obviously. So again, stiffening and reinforcing the bend on this tube. I like the way that they're doing this on this rig, because it's going to obviously add to the stiffness of the rig, and you know we like to have as much stiffness as possible in our rigs here at the SRG. Now, the hardware on this thing, and you saw the holes on the, if you saw the segment on a closer look for the holes, the female holes on the seat part, this is where all your hardware is. So it comes with the hardware already in the holes, which I kind of like, actually. Instead of just throwing everything in a bag, you know exactly where these screws need to go. So these holes are all tapped, obviously. They're kind of drilled in, but they have this little taper on them. How well that's going to show up. And then, of course, they're tapped in from there. And you can actually see it from here maybe a little better on this part. Go ahead and get this screw back in. But you can see right here in this part, it kind of comes in a little bit. I don't know how well that's going to show up there for you guys. This thing is heavy. It's all heavy, which is good. There we go. So you can see when they punched in the hole or drilled the hole, it kind of punches it in a little bit. And then obviously we'll put the threads in there for these M8 screws. Right. So we got 5 of these things on here, which is good. The more fasteners, the better. We have 2 on each side, and then we're going to have 1 on the top. Nothing on the bottom, though. All right, let's talk about this pedal tray, real quick. And I like this too because this has the adjustments on it that really add to the stiffness and anti-slip properties when you actually are inclining this. And you can see we have these screws here. And I'm going to show you a little close-up of this. They have the, if I can find my little wrench here. Anyway, they have the holes actually drilled into this, right? And here's the close-up sequence where we actually adjust the screw here. And once you screw the screw out, then you actually go to a smooth part on the bolt you can see there. And then you're able to raise and lower it to whatever angle you want it to be at. Very cool. Instead of just a slot running down all the way down here, we've got individual holes drilled, which is going to, once you pick the angle you want, it's going to be very, very tight and rigid because it's not just a slot here. Slots, you know, will always slide on you eventually, it seems like. I've never had a kind of setup where it was just a slot. Even no matter how tight I got the bolt, under maybe duress or yanking things around, it always seemed to slip. Anyway, that will not happen here, and I really like the way they have this bolt system where you just screw it. It doesn't come all the way out. You just screw it out far enough to get to that, like we saw, that smooth piece, and then you can go ahead and put it in any angle you want to. Very nice indeed. Now, also on this pedal tray, it is adjustable, right? So we can actually, let me get my 5mm. There are 2 5mm screws in here. You can see this like that. You can see the 2 in the front here, right? And there's 2 right behind it. And they actually, which is really cool, they've actually given us some access slots. So we can get in there and get on that Allen wrench, on that top of that button head screw, loosen it up, and do the same thing on the other side. Get down there and see where it's going. I've already got the back loose, because there's 2 that we get to on this slot. And this again pays to have one of these ball type ends on your Allen driver, okay? Because we can get that off angle. And these are at a bit of an off angle. I'm actually spin this around because I want to show you how far back it goes anyway. But yeah, to get to these, and I'm actually doing that, you can see the angle I'm at here. See that? And to get to the ones up front, I'm also at an angle right there. Okay, so these ball head drivers really are worth their weight in gold when it comes to this kind of stuff. Right, now we have it loose. It's a simple matter of obviously sliding it. So you can see we can slide it all the way this far, and we can slide it all the way up that far. And I actually want to measure this to see exactly how much room we've got on the slider itself. And I'm going to go up to where that front bolt is, because that's where it stops, the front bolt. And I'm going to measure it to the end of the slot. It looks like we've got 100, almost 100, I'd say about 180, 185 mil of length that we can use there, which is about 7 inches. So 7 inches of movement for your pedal reach is very good. That is really nice. I like that. You know, what they've done here is very nice. I like the way a lot of thought went into this, I think, for them to get it to this point. Let me go ahead and snug this up real quick, because I don't know, obviously, where I'm going to have the pedals once I have them mounted there. I'm not sure what pedals these slots are drilled for, but we're going to find out. I've got some Fanatics and HPPs and some other things laying around that we can try and see how they fit. Some Thrustmasters, Logitechs, I think. Yeah, we got all that stuff. And we'll see how they line up on this plate when we get to that point of actually mounting our hardware, which will be the actual setup video. You guys know I usually do a build video, and then I'll do another video called the setup, because it, you know, it just takes so long to do these things. Right, so there we have it. The bottom part for the front of the frame, and it looks good. Like I said, the construction is really good. I really like the way this pedal tray is working. Things are looking good so far for the TR8 Trak Racer cockpit. Now this section is for the wheel base plate mount. So we're going to attach another piece here that's actually going to let us attach a wheelbase to the frame, but we'll get to that once we get a closer look at that piece. But right now, the theme continues on with the nice swooping tubes here, as you can see. 2-inch diameter, again, still the 2mm thick. And we've actually got some pieces welded here. You can see this piece welded here that's got the cutout for the Trak Racer logo. And yeah, and obviously that's going to add some reinforcement for this piece in here as far as this actual bend. Instead of just, again, instead of just leaving the bend there, they've actually reinforced it with this little cool little garnish, if you will, to let you remember, make sure you know that it's a Trak Racer. And there you go, you can see the TR there in the white background pretty well. And we've also got these little collars here, and these are just, again, something that adds some texture and some contrast to the all black tubing that we see on this frame. And on the front here, you can see these. This is what you'll be looking at when you're using this and using the, actually have your wheel bracket attached up here. And we can see a couple of screws for that up there. And again, we have another plate there that has the Trak Racer logo in it. So pretty simple here. Two 2-inch pieces crossing here for support. that should give us, again, this is a very, if you grab this and kind of try to squeeze it or, yeah, do anything with this tubing in this, yeah, it's not moving at all. And yeah, I like that. It really, as far as each piece I get to, I'm always looking for something where it's going to be where is the weak spot for this stuff? As far as where are we going to see the flex at? But so far, it looks like it's very sturdy. At least the sections themselves are built really well and sturdy. And again, going on with what we've seen so far is we got 4 M8 screws that are going to be attaching when we slide this inside the actual front part of the frame. And yeah, we'll go ahead and start assembling it and see what we're looking like. So I decided to go ahead and put the seat brackets on the sliders before I actually attach the rear part of the frame of the cockpit to the front part. Just easier to do it when you're standing up here, not all bent over trying to do it. And the cool thing about this is they've actually, typically on a slider set, you've got holes in here, but you don't have any inserts, threaded inserts. You got to put your own nuts inside of the Trak here to make this work and get everything fixed, your fastener tightened down. But fortunately, I'm going to make a little noise here, get this going in the right direction. I'm going to take this out and show you what I mean. All right, so these are 2 M8 bolts, and they're little cap heads, which have a 5mm hex size on them, right? And they should be long enough to put one of these brackets on here on top of this rubber. Speaking of the rubber, oh yeah, let me show you this thing again. We talked about it earlier, but there it is up close. Yeah, again, I'm not exactly sure what this is for, but anyway. And we have some inserts in here, threaded inserts. You're not going to be able to see it from there, but yeah. And very nice to have that so we don't have to put our finger in there and try to get a nut started. And that means you have to put the sliders way out so you can get to everything. It's just, you know, it's doable, obviously, but it's very nice to see this. Very nice indeed. Right, so we're going to take one of the brackets, and I'm going to put on this. This is the rear, so this is going to be the right side bracket. And I want the slots pointing forward so I can get as much rake or angle on the seat as possible. I'm probably going to use this bottom hole back here and the very top one up there to get as much angle on the seat, because I like a seat laid back a bit. Maybe get 50, maybe even 40. I don't know how much we'll be able to get, but we'll see that once we actually get the seat mounted. So all we had to do is put this over the holes, existing holes that we already have, and we're going to put these bolts back in here and see if we can get them started with our fingers. Hopefully they're going to line up and do like we want to. There we go. That one's in, and then we'll get the other one started. Again, I'm not sure why this rubber's here, but when you're tightening this down, you want to consider that the rubber is there. And normally I would just tighten it down, torque it down to metal against metal is typically how these will work. We'll go ahead and make a little noise here. All right, now I'm going to just kind of hand torque it, and yeah, I'm not going very far. You don't really want to squish this rubber out real tight or anything. Yeah, I think that'll do. Right, so here we are. I mean, we've got the bracket mounted, but it's going to have some leeway to where it'll move back and forth. Actually, the whole rail is moving there too, isn't it? So once this is compressed down, this rubber is actually pretty tight. But I'm thinking that, I'm trying to figure out why that you would want rubber on there. Maybe it's so these can expand a little bit if a bigger person gets in the seat, if it's flexible enough to move out a little, and it'll accommodate that so that somebody gets in can be comfortable with a larger bum. Anyway, we're going to find out once we get the seat mounted. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and slap the other one on, then we're going to take it over and put the rear part and the front part of the cockpit together and see how that works. This is the shifter mount assembly that comes with the base version of the TR8 cockpit. And there is an accessory available that I actually have that actually is a bigger mounting surface than this one is. But we'll look at this one first, and then we'll look at the accessory later. First off, you get these 2 brackets. And again, going with the theme here, very thick steel. I believe this is 3 mil, somewhere in that area. Yep. Oops. Sometimes it kind of slides off on me. There we go. So that's 3.2 mil. And so this bracket is going to go with these 2 screws here up against the seat slider part of the frame that we saw before. I'll show you another shot of it here. Where the logo is on that plate, there are 2 pairs of screws or bolts. And that's where we're going to be mounting these guys, right? And depending on which side you want your shifter on is the side, of course, that you're going to be mounting these 2 brackets. And the 2 brackets are going to sit next to each other like this. And then this will be facing outbound, right? So we have a screw in the middle here. Actually, it's a thread. And it does give us a chance to, because there's 3 holes here, we actually can move this a little bit, I think, on this, because we have an oblong hole here. So when we screw this in, yeah, it's actually, this is the only adjustment in this, it looks like. So this is a slotted hole, but this is not a slotted hole. So I think that's to give some leeway, wiggle room, if you will, if it's not quite lined up properly. And that way the back one will be put on first, and then you can put the bolt through this one and mount it to the second one. Speaking of bolts, these are the bolts you get in your kit for this shifter. I'll just use one of them. And it comes with these these bent washers. See how that washer is actually bent. And it's actually contoured, so that will actually, when you have this mounted and you're going in to bolt this up to one of these brackets down here, right? Because the bracket's going to be sitting up like this, and you'll put the shifter, get down where you guys can see this, on like that to the side of the bracket. This is the right side orientation which I'll be using it on. And this bolt will fit obviously through the hole, and our washer being bent, you can see it's going to fit really nicely there on the top. So it's nice that they go to little details like this. I do appreciate. I'm sure most of you will. And you can see that we actually have a little bit of wiggle room here for where we can actually bolt this up. So I'm sure that it makes better chances, or ensures, that this will all line up and you won't have any issues. Now there is an adjustment for the top here, and you can see the top has a lot of holes in it to put a shifter on. I'm not sure what patterns these are. I believe one of these may be the pattern for the Thrustmaster TH8A, might be a Fanatic pattern up here in a Logitech. I'm going to check that while once I have this on here, I'll check a couple of shifters and see how they fit, as we usually do. And yeah, I'll let you guys know what fits on this. Now, obviously it'll be mounted like this, and this is the front, and this gives us a pivot point here. So we can actually pivot towards us or away from us as far as the shifter orientation once we have this mounted. So, and I'm going to pull one of these out just to show you that this is kind of the same scheme, or theme going here rather. Yeah, there we go. Well, I don't have to do that. You guys can see it. See that? We had 3 holes there. Instead of just a slot, there's 3 individual holes. So there is this position over here when that hole has the screw in it over there. And then we can rock it back the other way, move the screw to the other hole, and then we position it the other way. So we have 3 positions that we can mount here. Again, very thick tubing. It's 2-inch wide, I believe. Actually, there's a little taper to this. See this here? Let's see what the difference is here. It's 2-inch everywhere so far that I've been measuring, or 50 mil, and it is 50 mil there. So it looks like when we get to the back here, let's see what we get. It's going to be a bit thicker, unless my eyes can't see right. So yeah, you can see it's a little bit bigger there. It's 50.8, 50.9, and here it's actually, well, let me get to where the other piece is. There it is. Now if I can just angle it so you guys see it, yeah. So it's a little bit taper there. You can see it's 47 there. All right, so we got a bigger taper coming out to the front, which is actually, it looks like it's just thinner on the top part. There's 51 down there. Yeah, that's 51 mil there. And yeah, up at the top we got we're in the 4 point whatever. So let's see what the very top here measures. That's 46. So yeah, it looks like a slow taper all the way down here to where it gets to here, where we're actually up to like 51 mil that's going to fit onto this. And it does fit pretty well. You can see there. So this is radiused so it will fit this properly. Right, so pretty simple mechanism here, and it looks like it's going to be pretty solid from what I can tell. But then again, we're going to have to get all this mounted up on the frame and see how it looks when we do that. So what we'll do next is, get this mounted to the frame, and then we'll probably end up taking it off the frame because we're going to be looking at another shifter, the accessory shifter handbrake combo that comes with this unit, or you can order with this unit. It doesn't come with it. This is the accessory shifter slash handbrake mount that you can order for the TR8 chassis. And it consists of this tube here. Get a closer look here. And of course, it's the same diameter of all the rest of the tubing, which is 2 inches. It's got a nice weld in the front here. And we've got another one on the back, holding this flange here to the tube. And again, on the top, you can see some more welding there and over there. So again, this kind of goes with the flow of this rig as far as the thickness of the plates and where the welds are put. It's just, everything is just well done here. And this top plate here is what we're going to actually mount this plate to. So it has 2 pairs of holes, so we can actually adjust a little bit up or down. And there is a pattern here, as you can see. It's a triangle pattern. So depending on which side you're going to have your shifter handbrake combination on, then you'll actually can flip this plate over by removing these screws. And you can also change the angle. So I can actually angle this up, or depending on which way it's going, down or up, and make it a little bit more accessible. Now, there is no adjustment for the height, just like the stock or OEM shifter that comes with the kit when you order the kit. Remember, this is an accessory. So there's no height adjustment there either. Now, this is the main plate that goes on top of this. And you can see it has 2 patterns here. And they're kind of, you can flip this around, so it's kind of a universal deal, right? So you can see these counterboard holes here. Got a triangle pattern here, and we got one over here. And if we flip it around, you can see it's also counterboard holes on this side, right? And that's for these. This is a little hardware kit, a fastener kit that comes with it. You got a couple of Allen wrenches in it, and we've got these little flathead screws. I believe these are 5mm. I think these are 5mm. We'll see once we get it on there. You can see a little flathead. Looks like stainless screws. And of course, that's so we can fit this and put one of these screws in here. And it's nice and flush with the top. Once you tighten it down, it'll probably pull it down a little bit. It's a little bit proud right now. But that's so it doesn't interfere with the shifter mount when you're trying to put a shifter in here, right? So, they actually give you some other hardware with the original main kit that has some M6 and M5 screws that you can actually attach things with. I think I'm going to try to run my Airlogs shifter and handbrake on this because I think they might actually fit and even have an angle that I need. But this is actually a pretty thick plate. This is very heavy, which is good. We love heavy because heavy usually means stiff, right? I do this in a left-handed orientation so you guys can see what's going on. All right, let's see. This looks pretty thick, actually. That is what, 4? Yeah, about 4.3, 4.5 maybe, close to 4.5 mil. So substantial piece of steel here. And the only thing is you're not going to have a height adjustment on this, but that's not uncommon with a prefab type of cockpit. Usually there are some limitations on height, or there's always some kind of limitation of what you can do as far as different adjustment axes go. But I think I'm going to use this. Well, actually, I know I'm going to use this instead of the stock shifter. Now, you could put the stock shifter on the other side, right, and do something with that. But this is I think going to work out pretty good. I've already kind of looked at how it's going to fit my shifters and my handbrake. So what we'll do is get this puppy mounted up and see what it looks like. All right, so now I've got the front and rear sections lined up. I went ahead and just put these 2 sections together already and lined up the screw holes. It wasn't that hard, just kind of jiggle it a little bit as you're pulling them together, and didn't have any problem. And the holes actually just a little bit fiddly, but not too bad, getting them lined up and ready to go. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and just fasten one side up. And I wanted to include this into this segment. And this is that accessory shifter piece for the shifter and the brake, handbrake. And that's that big piece that goes on top of here. If you saw that in the closer look, you'll know what I'm talking about. And that sits on here like this, right? Now, you can see it's at an angle right away. You can say, gee, that's going to be kind of funny shifting that way. But this has a hole in it right here that we can actually rotate this whole plate back. And we will be doing that when we do the setup on this. But right now, we're just going to mount it here. Now, because we're mounting this, we're going to be mounted where these 4 holes are already at, and these bolts are going to be going through it. We do not use the 5th bolt that goes on the top. Over there, we will use it because the bottom of this does not have, you see this here? It doesn't have a hole in it to get around this bolt head if we put it in. So we're just going to be using the 4. Now, hopefully this is all lined up and it's going to go together easily and quickly. So let's see how it goes. Let's see. Helps to kind of jiggle it around a little bit sometimes to get things lined up. And you want to make sure when you're putting these bolts in or when you're starting them that you do it finger tight, because if it's not going with your fingers, the effort that your fingers have, then you might have a problem. And actually they're not, that one's not going in very well. Let's try this side over here. Sometimes if one side doesn't go, you can go over to another side and get that one started. But it looks like maybe one of these wants to start. That might be it. Nope. And sometimes if you kind of lift up on stuff, it'll go ahead and start for you. We try all kinds of little things here to get these bolts to go, but it looks like it's not really lining up here. Let's see, I thought I had this lined up pretty good. And what happened was, I think when I took the top bolt out, yeah, it must have twisted around a little bit. So, again, as you can see what I'm doing, both of these pipes, kind of pushing them around. And I'm going to try to see if I can get these. It looks like it wants to start, but it's off angle here. And it helps to get down and look and see what's going on, and that's what it looks like. Looks like this needs to come in a little bit more. Let's try that. There we go. That's what it was. Just needed to pull this in a little bit more, and it lined up. So, back to our task at hand. And that's to get these guys started. It always seems easy when you don't have anything on it. But as soon as you start to put your brackets and things, or any accessories on, things just don't want to go as easily as they do when you're just like I did before without anything on it. So, but yeah, these are all going in fingers tight, which is what we want. Now, because those on that side lined up, these should line up pretty well too. And they are. Right. So, let's see. This one's going. There we go. And there we have it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up just for the heck of it. So I'll speed that up just because it's kind of loud. All right, so I ran these down, and now I'm just going to kind of use the hand wrench action of this electric wrench just to snug it down. You don't want to torque this, you don't want to crush the tube, is the whole idea behind this. There we go. You just want to get it nice and snug. I'm actually looking for any deflection on the metal when I'm doing this. As soon as I see anything, I can actually see the light across the top of this. And as soon as I start seeing anything that would indicate that the bolt's pulling into the metal itself, I'll stop. Like right there. That's good. That should be fine. Right. And yeah. Oh man, this is going to be one solid rig. Wow. Okay, so what we'll do next, obviously I'm going to go over there and put all 5 bolts in the other side, and yeah, we'll come back and take a look at that once that's done, and then we'll move on to the next piece. Okay, now we're ready for the wheelbase support section of this frame, and again, we're just going to be going into these 2 female pipes with our male pipes over here, and we're going to have 4 bolts on either side. If you saw the closer look on this assembly, you'll know what I mean by the bolts being 4 bolts on each one of these pipes. Now, hopefully this will just go drop right in. So let's see how well this goes in here. Oh yeah, Very nicely indeed. Right. So now it's just a matter of getting our M8 bolts here. And we might have to lift up on this a little bit to get things lined up, because it did slide pretty far in there. And yeah, I'm looking at it now. That's what it looks like. So yeah, this is going to be easy. Get a couple started here on this side. I'll go over to the other side. I like it when it goes easy. And actually, I'm actually pulling up on it again because I needed to for this side. So yeah, this is kind of a pull things around, like I said before when we were doing the joints down there on the two bottom halves. Just kind of jiggle things around a little bit, and they will come to you. It's good to have a little play in these pipes when you're putting them together. The other ones over there were pretty tight. It makes it a lot easier. Plus, we don't have any brackets to put on this side like we did for that shifter mount that we actually put on the other one. Yeah, this is... I think that's going in okay. Let's try this one. All right. That's looking good. Yeah, this is... The one on this side on the lower is a little bit... Doesn't really feel good to me. Get in here and look at it. It looks like it needs to... There we go. I'm going to rock this forward a little bit, and that should clear it. There we go. See? Just have to keep wiggling things around a little bit. So we'll go ahead and make some noise here and get these bolts secured. Right, so again, I'm going to be using the ratchet motion of this wrench and looking down at where this is contacting the metal, and just gently snug this up. Because again, we don't want to pinch these pipes, because once you deform the pipes, if you ever have to take it apart and put it back together, you're going to have some issues. And I know I'm going to want to take this apart someday. So I'm going to be... And you don't have to torque it down real tight to get the stiffness in this thing. I mean, this is going to be... I'll tell you what, just from putting this together at this point, this overall frame stiffness is very, very, very good. I'm actually a little surprised. But as I'm putting it together, I can see why it is as stiff as it is. Right, so, yeah, gracious. Man, this thing's a tank. I can't... Okay, I am getting a little more movement here. Now that I'm on the top here, they're getting some leverage on it. And I can see that's moving there, so I might have to tighten these up just a bit more. And that's good. You want to be able to do things like this before you do your final tighten and get it to where you want it to be. Because this will tell you how far you can go with these bolts. See, that one was actually a little bit loose there once I started moving it around. Okay. Let's see how these are doing. And I wanted to show you this process. You guys have the patience. See, that one came loose too. So yeah, again, this is why we do this. As we pull one in, the other one can come loose a little bit. Oh yeah, there we go. That's got, I think that's got it right. Yeah, these are still very tight on this side. And we'll do the same thing to this side. I'm sure it's got the same deal going on now that I moved it. Yeah, there's still a, you know, another half a turn or so in these sides, on the bolts on this side. And again, typical when you're first assembling something for the first time. Yeah, these are actually got another couple turns in them over here. As this metal comes together, it kind of mates to each other and compresses, but you don't want it to compress too much. Yeah, there we go. Ha! That's got it. Oh yeah. You know what? This is, I know I just said that, but wow. You know, if you ever put one of these together, you'll know exactly what I mean. I'm not used to a prefab cockpit being this stiff. when it comes together. But I can see why it is, because of the tubes they're using and all the bolts we're using to put this, cinch all this stuff up together. Yeah, looks pretty good. So what we'll do next, let's see, what do I want to do next? I guess we'll go ahead and put the steering wheel section on, and I'm going to be putting the speaker bracket on that also at the same time, so to save a little time. And that's going to be just going on this front pipe up here. And if you saw the closer look, you know what I'm talking about if you saw that. So yeah, we'll get to the actual wheel mount next. So this is the actual wheelbase mount. And I left the front frame part out so you can actually see how this is going to work. This is a very nice design here. I like this. It's, first of all, look at this. We've got this sleeve here that has 3 bolts on each side. And it's a clamping sleeve that's going to go over this pipe here. Now we're going to take these 2 screws out before we do that. And so this will actually clamp on. So let me go ahead and turn this around so we can get a better look at kind of what it should look like. Is that going to fall off? Hopefully it won't fall off. But anyway, we're going to have this clamped on again this way. So it's going to be sitting right here like this, facing us, right? Okay. And then we're going to use these 2 screws. This is getting ready to fall, so let me move that back over here, to attach also here. And that's going to be our adjustment. See that? Again, we're keeping with the theme here of, instead of slots there, we've actually got individually drilled holes. Very cool. So now when we adjust the angle of this one way or the other, again, we're not going to have the micro adjustment we would have if there were slots in there. So yeah, we're going to lose that a little, but I don't think it's going to matter that much. We should be able to find an angle with all the different holes here. We've got a total, it looks like 5 different holes there, and that's a pretty long slot. So I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to dial something in. Then you can actually micro adjust with the top plate itself, because it will actually move too. All right. It's got, you can see inside here, you can see here that there's actually a slot there. Okay. Now that slot, actually, let me go ahead and pull the screw out and show you that. Get a better look at it. Again, is a 3-hole slot. So we're going to have 3 different angles of adjustment there. So we have to pull, we have to pull the screws on this side too to be able to make that adjustment. But yeah, you can see we've actually got 3 holes. So once we cinch this back down in whatever hole we have, whatever angle we want, that's going to be a very solid setting once we do that. And of course, this piece up here also will be cinched down. The screw up here on this tube that's actually spreading across here that allows the top to rotate. On each side, we'll have those tightened down. So we'll have, yeah, a very solid deck, it seems like. From what I'm looking at here, this is going to be a very solid mount. I mean, this is very tough stuff, and it's very thick. Let's see what the thickness is. It's a heavy piece. Let's see, the deck itself. Let's see what we get here. All right. That's, what, about 3.2 mil, so over 3 mil. And the supporting pieces, I think these are all the same size on the supporting pieces. Again, oops. Yeah, about the same. Give or take a little, right? So 3.2 mil throughout, and the tube itself is, I wonder if this tube is any thicker. Let's see what we get on this tube. Wow. The tube is 3 mil too. So the tube is actually thicker than the tubing that we mic'd out on this. So that was 2 mil, I believe, 1.892 mil. So yeah, very thick, solid build here. Once we have this, and of course we also have a lateral adjustment back and forth, so that, and you can see those slots there, those are the main slots where this bolt is sitting, right? And of course, this one too. So once we have this cinched down and this one cinched down, that's going to be very tight, I think, as far as pushing and pulling on it. So yeah, I really like this assembly. I'm impressed here what they've come up with this particular design. And I can't wait to see just how good it is. Obviously, the final test is going to be, or as we like to say, the litmus test, is going to be having this mounted to this piece and then having a wheel mounted to this too. I was thinking about, I might mount a direct drive wheel to this. I don't know. I'll have to wait and see what's available and what's the easiest for me to put on. But yeah, I do like this. I think if you guys look at what I'm seeing here, yeah, very nicely done. And you know, we got big thick welds here on the pipe, attaching it to this other piece of the plate. So yeah, I'm liking what I see here. And again, thick welds, not just on one side, but both sides. You can see on the inside and the outside, we have a nice weld here. So yes, sir. This should be a nice, and I get excited, a little bit too excited, when it comes to solid wheelbase mounts. All right, because so many of them out there on these prefab rigs are not. They're just, you know, no matter what you do, there's some flex in there. It's noticeable. So yeah, there might be some flex in this too once we have it all cinched up. But yeah, we're going to find out, as you know. That's what we do here at the SRG. Right. So yeah, we'll get this mounted up and see what it looks like. So now we're going to put this wheelbase holder or assembly bracket onto the front part of the rig. Obviously, that's where it's got to go. And if you remember the wheelbase bracket here, it's got these screw holes in it. Let me show you down here on the other monitor. And yeah, we're going to have 2 screws to put that in there, or actually to hold this on. And that's what these 2 screws are right here. So we're just going to take those out. They're M8 button heads. And then we're going to put the bracket up here. Let's put one of them here so I don't lose it. Hey, I just lost it. Right. And I'm going to go with the 3rd hole here. That's what I'm thinking is where I want to be. But we can fine tune with the rest of the bracket here once we're, you know, in the 3rd hole, and if it's too high or too low. So I'm going to kind of get in front here. Hope I'm not blocking you too much to get these started. You just want to start them with your fingers. Yeah, I'm going to grab the other one that fell down. And line that up with the 3rd hole. There we go. So now you can see that it's holding it now at the 3rd hole. And I'm going to leave that a little loose, because now we're going to put the back bracket part of this assembly on. And this is going to be pretty tight once we get this. Everything's pretty solid so far. It's really a solid piece here as far as this rig is concerned. But this is, I've got a feeling the same thing is going to be happening with this, with 6 bolts cinching this down. But before I do that, we're going to be, we got the speaker mount accessory kit with this rig. And there's 3 holes on this center speaker bracket. And obviously, it's going to fit on the back of this. Like something like this. All right. And that's going to hold our speaker. Actually, it's going to be upside down. It's going to be hanging down like that. All right. And our speaker is going to be upside down. You can't put the speaker here on the top. Well, you could, I suppose, if you're just running a thrust mount or something with a very small wheelbase. But then again, you don't want your speaker shooting in the back of your wheelbase. So we'll just flip it upside down like that and put it on the bottom bracket down here, right? So that's the idea. And if you look down here, I know it's hard to tell with this close-up angle camera, but that speaker's really, looks like it's pretty much out of the way to me. We won't know for sure. It's going to be a very small speaker. It's a Logitech speaker. So I got a feeling this is going to be okay, but we won't know for sure until we actually get it attached. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this bracket. I'm going to put 1 bolt into this bracket. And remember, you got to feed this bracket. It has to be fed from the bottom. You can't get into the top here. So this comes up through the bottom like that. Easy enough. And we'll get one of our shorter bolts and acorn nuts. And of course, that's what we took out. And if you saw the closer look, then whoops, you know what these look like, right? So we'll go ahead, and I'm just going to put 1 in the top here just to see what we're looking at once we, you don't want to get anything cinched down tight at all when you're trying to do multiple things at once. Yeah, so we'll just let that kind of hang there. In fact, I might go ahead and put the rest of the top ones in just because we can. Right, let's get that one in. Get a nut on there. This is pretty easy as far as this part of the assembly. Everything goes together really nice here. Right. Now, on the bottom of this bracket, we took out the smaller ones and acorn nuts that come with this bracket when it's actually set up, right? So we took out these short ones, but we have these longer ones that come with that speaker kit. Let me show you up close here. See those long ones? All right. So that's because obviously we've got a bracket going on the bottom, and we need a longer thread to take up for that thickness of the bracket to make this work. So let's see how it works. This is the first time I actually put this on here, so let's see what happens. I'll go with the center one first. I can find it. There it is. I'm using the monitor to look at it. Go ahead and put this guy on. Let's see if I can get my fingers in here and get the nut on the back. And there it is. All right. So that's what it's going to look like. Okay. We'll get the other two, obviously, get the other two bolts in. And again, you get 3 of those longer bolts because that's what you need to make this work. And it's nice that they actually included that in the kit. Somebody knew what they were doing over at Trak Racer. Yeah, let's get those started. And get the other started. Now before I tighten this down and do a final tighten on it, if I can find the other hole, there it is. I'm actually going to, yeah, you guys probably won't see that because I'm going to be playing with it a little bit, and it might take me a little while to get everything exactly lined up the way that I feel like I want it. And that's just, you know, a personal preference thing. So you see we have some movement here, obviously, with things being loose. I can actually get that much rotation, which makes this pretty flat. The top is pretty flat now. I don't know how that looks on the camera, but it might even look like it's tilting up on my bottom camera. But yeah, this looks pretty flat right here. So that's probably where I would tighten it up. In fact, let me just snug up these 2 front nuts here that are doing the angle and see what that looks like. Of course, tightening them up might bring it back down. Let's see what we got here. And these are 5mm hex heads on these buttons. I can actually tighten them at an angle so you guys can see that. There we go. All right. And obviously that's not the load bearing bolts right there. That's just tightening up our angle. Load bearing is going to be the guys up here, right? The top ones and the bottom ones, obviously. So I'm just going to snug them up finger tight and see what I'm looking like here. Right. Okay. So yeah, I think that's going to be okay because we still have a little bit of movement up here because of the bottom part, you know, the screws up, bolts up here that we have adjustments back and forth and swivel as far as that's concerned. So yeah, we should be able to get what we want dialed in pretty good here. I'm looking at, and this will not, because of where the bolts and everything bolts there, you really don't have any lateral adjustment. And it looks like I'm making contact here with this aluminum sleeve, but I think I can take this aluminum sleeve. Remember, these aluminum sleeves here, they have a set screw in them. So I think I can probably loosen that up and push this back a little bit just to get it out of the way of the angle that I think I'm going to want. Right. So yeah, that's it for putting the wheelbase kit or wheelbase adjustment platform on here. And we got the speaker mount on at the same time, just to get 2 birds with 1 stone here. And yeah, we'll just move on to the next item. Here we have the monitor mount that comes with the cockpit. And this is a rather large piece here. Get a little closer here. And it has mounts for 110 and 200 as far as, and they say this thing will take up to a, get this, 70-inch monitor. So confidence is high over at Trak Racer. This is going to get the job done. It has a little shelf on the back here. And the shelf is like you can put, I guess, a PlayStation or an Xbox or something like that. Maybe even if you have a PC or if you have a direct drive wheel, you can put the box back there for that. So yeah, it's nice to have a little shelf, I suppose, to do things like that. And we've got the usual that we've seen so far on this. Got some little bit of chipping there from the paint, but that's going to go inside and we'll never see that. And yeah, this is a very heavy duty piece of metal here. It's again, and it's going into this. And this is the mount that it will go into. So obviously it's going to sit in there like this. Right. And this goes up and secures into, this actually has a set screw here. So it will secure into, if I can show you this, there it is. The set screw will go up there and pinch it in the back there. See that hole? Oops. This is not going to be easy. All right, there we go. See that little hole there? And the set screw will go in there and cinch down on that part of the tube, right? And give us a nice seamless mount once we have it on there. And of course, the bottom of this is going to clamp to one of the cross members on the wheel base mount part that's coming up from the front of the cockpit. And again, I really like these clamping systems like this for tubing. Yeah, this is going to be very secure. I can just look at that and tell. And you can see how thick this is. How thick is it? I mean, this thing is like major. It looks like it's like 10 mil or something. Maybe not that thick. But yes, it's pretty doggone thick, man. Yeah, 8.86. I think that's what I'm getting on this. Let's see. Man, I gotta see what this is. All right, there we go. Yep, 8.5, 8.5 millimeter. So yeah, I guess, you know, and this is a heavy piece too. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, 70-inch monitor will fit on this, or it can support it anyway, because, you know, it's going to be sitting straight up and down like this, and sitting into this little pocket or sleeve in here. So yeah, I could see it supporting that, especially the way the front of that wheelbase piece is made with those tubes and all that welding everywhere. Yeah, I like this actually, but I won't be using it because I already have a triple monitor mount set up that I'll be using with the cockpit when I'm actually doing the driving. But yeah, this is a nice piece of kit here. Right, so let's move on to the next piece. Now I have a triple monitor mount, so I'm not going to be using the monitor mount that comes with this kit. But I am going to show you how it goes on real quick because, yeah, you might want to see that. First off, if you saw the monitor mount bracket in the closer look, then you know how that's assembled. Now there's actually on the bottom of this tube a screw, and you can see it down here. And you may have seen this. There's actually a shot I can show you in the video here that, yeah, when we were looking at this top section here for the that's used for the wheelbase support. Yeah, there's a screw that I just took out there on the bottom. And you can see the screw there. And the bottom of this bracket has a hole in it that the screw is actually going to go into and secure this to the bottom. And I'm going to kind of get down here and look as I'm putting it in, try to get a location on it. This can be a little fiddly sometimes. Yeah, I think it's got it. Nope. Actually, what I'm going to do is take my wrench. That'll help me do it because it's kind of recessed in here. It's hard to find. There we go. Okay. So now that's kind of cool because it holds the bracket there for us, right? So this will stay right there while I'm trying to put the top part on. And the top part has 4 screws, right? And easy enough. I don't see any indication here on whether what's front or back or what have you. It really doesn't say, it doesn't show anything. So we'll just go ahead and put it on this way. And I'm just going to let these screws kind of sit there and try to get them started here with this ball wrench driver. There goes 2 there. Well, this is just too easy. And it also locates it exactly where it needs to be, so you're not sliding it around on the top bar here. There we go. So yeah, I'll just snug these down. Couldn't be simpler. This is probably the easiest thing to go on yet, I think. I'm not going to clamp down tight on it yet. Actually, I'll be taking it back off anyway, but that's how it goes on. I think before I clamp down tight here, I would go ahead and go on the bottom screw and tighten that up tight, and then come back up here to these guys, and then do it that way. Right, so once that's in, it's a pretty simple matter here. There's really no clamping mechanism here on this collar, which I thought it might have been when I was doing the closer look, but it doesn't seem to be. Just kind of take this thing and set it in there like that. And then you can actually turn it freely. And of course, this is still moving a little bit because I don't have it tight, right? So I would secure that, tighten it down, and it wouldn't be moving this way anymore. But with your monitor mounted and the weight of the monitor, you'll still be able to move your monitor independently pretty easy here, I guess. And again, this is the shelf for like a PlayStation or an Xbox or something like that. So yeah, not bad. So here are all the parts for the keyboard / mouse tray assembly. And we've got the round mouse pad here. And this stuff is aluminum. It's kind of thin aluminum, and it is welded. See, we got some welds on the bottom there. And this is actually a, let me see how, this is actually very, it just feels thin. I guess this is about, I don't know, it's not that much. About 2 millimeter thick on this. And the diameter looks like it's around 200 millimeter or 8 inches. So that's big enough for a mouse to move around a little bit if you have a small mouse, or do like I do. I have a trackball, so I just, you know, it's easier that way you don't have to move it around. So that's for the mouse. This is for the keyboard. Again, this stuff is so light, and it's kind of, because we've been handling all this heavy stuff, parts of the rig so far, this is really light. And same thickness, and of course we got the big track racer there, in case you forget which cockpit you're in when you're racing. And the same kind of deal on the bottom there with the welds. Right, and they were going to fit to this piece. This is the main piece here that's going to grab them. The keyboard will go in like this. All right, and the mouse pad is going to sit up here like this. Now, I kind of wondered when I saw pictures of this, I'm going, well, how's that going to work exactly? But yeah, you're going to have plenty of room to type here, and then just reach up and get your trackball or whatever it is you're using up there. Now, and we have some hardware here in a little bag, obviously, that has 4 screws in it and a couple of Allen wrenches so that you can fasten these guys to this. And this will sit straight up like that, obviously, because we just saw that. And then we're going to start connecting things. And I'll show you how this connection works. And it can go either way. So we've got 2 set screws in the back of this, right? And we've got these, you can see that there's a hole in there for the screw. And then we have a little slot in there that will stop this. And you can see the slot on the round part here, this little lip, right? So that's going to fit in there. And then the set screw is going to come in and grab this so that it can't slide back out. And the screw will go in from the other side over here and secure it. And all of them the same way. So we'll have this sitting like this. We'll attach this one in here like this. In fact, let's go ahead and take the screw out. And it's a long screw. It needs to be a long screw though. And this is going to fit in like that. And then we'll put the screw in and put it in that way. And that's a 5mm. Just happen to have a 5mm handy. So we'll go ahead and screw that in there. And I'm flipping this. See how the screw's sitting up? You need to flip it down. At least that's the way that it shows it in the instructions. And then once that's in there, we're going to leave it loose, obviously, until we figure out what angle we want to be at. And then what we'll do is continue on. It has the same kind of flange on it into this guy, like this. So he'll be sitting down straight up and down. And then we've got this piece that's going to go in here. And then it'll kind of accordion on us, right? So we can move things around and keep it out of the way. A kind of cool design. I can't wait to see what it actually functions once I have it set up. Now this is the piece, obviously, that's going on to the rig. And it's going to hold everything together, right? And again, this is aluminum, very lightweight stuff. And yes, you can see the welds there. We got a good weld there. And yeah, this is going to attach to, depending on which side you want your mouse, rather your keyboard mouse combination deal on. I'm going to want it on the right hand side, I think. I don't know, maybe the left hand side. Yeah, probably the left hand side, because my shifter and everything will be on the right hand side. So this is the way I'm going to mount it, and that way I can swing it in when I need the keyboard and the mouse. I kind of like this setup, actually. And again, I love the way they use the clamps on all this attachment hardware. They just made this really nice to be able to put it on easily. And I'll probably pre-assemble this arm and everything else on it. It's so light before and then just attach it at one time with these 2 socket head cap screws back here, right? And just tighten everything down, and we should be good to go. So when we come back, we'll take a look at that. So you want to put some sound on your rig. How are you going to do it? Well, they offer a kit to do that with, and here it is. This will actually put on, allow you actually to put on 5 different speakers, and with a center channel and the surround sound rear. Right. So it's pretty easy to do this. Actually, the instructions didn't come in the box, but I could figure it out pretty quickly. This is going to be mounted on either side of the back. And I'm going to show you a little shot here. Remember these 2 screws we were looking at on the bottom when we were doing a closer look of the bottom part of the frame for this cockpit? There's 2 little screws in the back there. Well, that's what is going to be holding this one. So these 2 little holes in here will attach to those screws. And then we have these 2 left over, and it's going to be kind of sitting out. So this will be, imagining this is the front and this is the right side. This will be up like that, and this has a step out to get past the actual bar of the frame, the tube of the frame rather. And then this will sit on the back like so, depending on how you want to do this. We got the right side here. Yeah. So this bracket here is going to mount sideways onto that, right? So you can actually mount this however you want to. Now some of these are actually shaped differently, so let's try this one. This might look a little, yeah, this one looks a little better. All right, so this one will actually go that way. Turn it around so you can see it. And that's the way it'll sit. So your speaker will be sitting in here. Your speaker wires come through these square holes, and you've got a bolt hole here for your 1/4" 20 thread screw that you'll actually be holding the speaker on with, which all the speakers, a little dust on this one, come with And this is the Logitech kit, a very popular kit. A lot of guys use these speakers on their rigs. And you just put your screw in there and it will secure it like so. Well, actually, let me get one that is a surround speaker. There we go. Has a little bit configuration for a surround speaker. So we'll just line that up to the back. And we should be able to, yeah, there we go. So there's our hole for the screw, and then we can get our wires in that way. Typically what I'll do is I will put the wires on, run the wires through this hole first, go ahead and clamp them down, and then put them together and put my screw in and be done with it. So there we have a back surround speaker that way, right? Pretty easy. And then for the front surround speakers, let's put this middle one back. We've got these guys, right? And these are clamps. Obviously, they're going to fit on the 2-inch tubing, and you can pretty much put these anywhere where you desire. So that's very nice that you can do that. I'll probably be running these on the steering wheel base tubes, but I might change my mind once we have it sitting on there and looking at it. They come with screws already in these brackets so that we can attach, again, another one of these brackets to it and mount our speaker. Now, what about the center channel? Well, that's going to mount to this guy, our heavy-duty wheel stand. Now we have some 6mm socket head cap bolts right here that are holding this clamp system together, right? So this bracket here, where'd it go? There it is. Will actually fit. You see the 3 holes in this bracket right there? It'll actually fit on there like that. And then we've got the same thing. We've got a hole for our speaker, and this is made for the center channel speaker, and it will line up with the center channel. Now, when we put this on here, you can see the thickness of this part of the bracket. Let's go ahead and move these guys out of the way. Center part of this bracket here is about 2.5 mil thick. So it's going to add some length to these socket head cap screws or bolts. And we're going to be using that. So, not to worry though, they actually put some longer ones in the kit. I'm going to take it out because reflections on that bag are not good. And they actually give us some, looks like 1/4 inch. I don't know if these will fit. Yeah, no, that's not for that. Actually, it's for connecting these guys on to these guys, right? So we get 4 of those. But these are what I was looking for, the socket head cap screws. Now these are going to be longer, so we can replace the ones in here with the longer ones, so it'll compensate for the thickness of this bracket, like that. And then we'll just bolt it up normally and be done with it, right? So, very cool, clean, slick little kit here, actually. And I'll show you how this center one, for the center channel of this particular speaker set anyway, it has a little bit different configuration than, say, the satellite speaker. Satellite speaker is a different, it's actually more space. You see how it's taller over the speaker connections on this one? This one is shorter, but not to worry, this bracket is actually made for the center channel speaker. If we put it on there, and you can see that it lines right up, right? So then we have our center channel. Like I said, very slick little kit here for the speakers. And I really like the fact that we've got a lot of options here with mounting the front speakers because of the clamp system they're using for that. So very cool indeed. Now for a closer look at the seat that comes with your Trak Racer Cockpit. Now I actually like this seat because it's a one-piece seat, just like a real race car seat. Now this is made out of fiberglass, and it actually has a little mold imprint there of the logo. And yeah, it's got a nice shape to it. The dimensions are on the website. I'll show you a quick shot of that as far as what the seat is supposed to be as dimensions. And yeah, we've got some harness holes on the bottom here for the waist. We've got a couple in the back, right, for the shoulder harness. Nothing in the center. So if you have a 5-point or 6-point, you'd have to cut a hole in here. And yeah, I really like this seat because most of these prefab type of rigs come with the seat that reclines. You know, you pull the thing, they're just not as solid as a one piece would be, as you might imagine. I mean, that's just, you know, logic dictates that. And yeah, so I expect this is going to be a more solid feeling seat when you're in it. Now, of course, that brings other issues, maybe, depending on the person, on how far back we can lean this and get comfortable in it, right? But I'm going to try to lean this back as far as I can because I usually like a little bit back, maybe 40, 45 degree angle, but we'll see how that works out. Right. So we actually it comes installed along with the theme of the rest of the cockpit. All these hardware bits and fasteners are actually in the holes already, which again, I do like because you don't have to go looking for them. You know exactly where they are and what they're supposed to be doing. Right. The material here is kind of it's a cotton, it feels like. Kind of a cotton twill to it, but maybe some nylon too. I'm not sure. It doesn't feel like it's super stiff or anything, but yeah, I'm not sure about the durability of this, but there's only one way to find out, and that's to use it, obviously. And the cushions are nice. They're a dense foam, and they're held on by Velcro on the bottom, so they're going to be easily replaceable if you need to replace your seat for any reason. And the back pad is the same way. And it's, again, the dense foam. Let's see if we can actually take a quick peek here at this dense foam that we're talking about. Let's get a little closer on that. So that's the foam. And it looks to be about, I'd say that's 2 inches or so, maybe 2.5 inches. Right. And you can see it's got a pattern on the cloth here. And it just has a couple of seams in the bottom of the seat, so nothing special there. So it looks like the foam is easily replaceable. You could put your own stuff in there. Just got to get the, you know, if it's too thick or if it's not thick enough, you could actually put something else in here up to a point for the getting it thicker. Obviously, the cover is going to restrict that and dictate how far you can go with that. Right. I have sat in this seat already, and it felt like a comfortable seat to me. And I think one of the reasons is it's got this very large, or not large, but deep foam here. It's very thick, the foam here. And this foam will compress, obviously. So I think they did that so that a lot of different people's bums can fit in here. So different size people, obviously, are going to have different size bodies. So I think that's why they did that in there. And yeah, it's pretty thick everywhere, really, in here too. So I'm pretty sure this will accommodate a larger amount of body styles. And say my Sparco seat doesn't have such a cushy foam in it. But then it's a real racing seat, and you don't want too much cushy foam in a real racing seat because you want to be strapped tight to it for safety reasons, obviously. We've got some embroidery here on the cover, Track Racer, and up here. And on the wings, you probably already saw them on each side. The embroidery actually looks pretty good here. I don't see any threads hanging out anywhere or anything like that. The cover feels smooth enough. I think this is going to be a pretty comfortable seat, actually. So, of course, we won't know until we get it bolted up to the cockpit and we're actually running longer stints with it. But yeah, I have high hopes for this seat. And I'm glad that they went with this instead of the reclining seats. Not only that, but it's not even close as heavy as those things are. This is almost 17 pounds, about 16.75 pounds, and that's about 7.6 kilo, I think. So yeah, not a heavy seat at all, which is great. I like that. And on the bottom, not much to see there. We do have a little spring here, which is typical what we see on these seat covers to keep everything down while we're using it, and still able to take it off if we need to replace the cover. Right. Final thoughts on the build process for Trak Racer's TR8 sim racing cockpit. This is part 1 of a 2-part video review series on the TR8. This is called The Build. Make sure you look for part 2 of this review called The Setup. I have to say that just about everything about this cockpit's build is very stiff and sturdy. It has just a really good feel to it. Using 2-inch or 50mm tubing that is 2 millimeters thick and adding bracing and double-sided wells in all the right places brings it all together to produce a very sturdy result indeed. Of course, we still have to configure this cockpit with our hardware and spend some time running it to be able to reach a final conclusion on its performance, which we will do in part 2 of this review. Now, the pedal tray seems to have plenty of range to be able to dial in your preferred pedal position, I think. And I like that the TR8 uses a series of holes instead of a smooth slot in its angle adjustment mechanism. And this theme carries on at the wheelbase brackets adjustment range. Speaking of which, based on its design and the way it clamps on to the top tube of the upper frame section, it certainly looks to be able to provide a very stiff and flex-free wheelbase mount. Now, the custom seat used in this kit is a one-piece fiberglass design, which I really like. I wish more cockpits were spec'd with this type of seat instead of the adjustable back type of seat. It has plenty of thick foam padding, which should allow it to fit, I think, a larger range of body types. So far, the TR8 kit is looking like it will provide a solid driving experience. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.